So K235 is a tablet-native musical instrument that I built. It just went live on the Apple Store, early July. I was sort of driven to do this because all the musical stuff I had been seeing on the tablets and on the iPhones were really just, I thought, either toys or imitations of real, unsatisfying imitations of real instruments. Basically, look, you can strum a guitar, and it's highly less satisfying than strumming an actual guitar. Or turntables or sequencers, things that actually I thought were better as physical products. So I decided to try something. I built this in a programming framework called Corona, largely because I understand it. It's a language. There's a language called Lua, which is a Brazilian scripting language. I think all musical apps should be written in Lua because it's Brazilian. It just adds something. And the whole thing is built basically on the, and I wanted to add some physicality and tactility to the experience. Basically, the whole thing is built around chasing spheres around, and the velocity of the spheres trigger different music events. The ability to tilt and shake, so it's very accelerometer and game-based. So I'm going to ask my, you have to actually hold it up. Two sound sets. One's the electronic one, one's chamber music. My roadmap is to launch a new sound set every month as sort of a marketing ploy to remind people that the app is actually on their device. I've sold 500 of these at 99 cents in a month, so I'm a 10-year. Thank you. And the most interesting thing I've learned is, I guess I had expected, because the kind of reviews I was getting were basically all in the sort of like, dark eyeglasses, Belgian, German, electronic music crowd. But I'm actually getting a lot of parents buying it for their kids, which was never like my intent, but it's cool to see it happen. I got probably the nicest thing that happened was I got an email from somebody who has a profoundly autistic child who bought it for his kid, and the kid just has come alive playing it. So that's unplanned, but a nice thing to have happen. So I sort of have a roadmap in place of music and also adding things. So the game engine, which is the one that comes with Corona, I'm using really just the primitive collision stuff and motion. I'm going to add more things like gravity that accelerate stuff, little spaces you can draw on that might distort or change the key of something as it passes through. So I'm going to, over the next few months, I'm going to roll out more of the game functionality in this thing and just hope and just keep at it. And I think I'm watching the market skew both in the kids' direction and in the sort of people who use sort of Ableton and Reason and that kind of crowd. So I'm going to keep on sort of pushing in both those directions, and hopefully, in a year it'll be an interesting story to tell. But it's completely bootstrapped. It's other than a very good designer friend who did the design and a little bit of help with the coding, most of this is me. And I'm just going to, like I said, chug along. And that's pretty much the story on this thing. So are there any questions? Yes. Oh, and also, if anybody, my website's twitch.com. If you want a promo code to play with it, just hit me up. And Apple still owes me a few of them. So.
What are the settings that are available? Looks like up in the left-hand corner there may be...
Yeah, so there's basically a how-to, the two different sound sets, and that will, so that's basically how... Oh, the other thing I'm doing, I'm also going to localize it for Korea, Japan, and probably Germany. I'm seeing where things are coming in, and so basically, when you localize an Apple, you change all the metadata to Korean metadata, and I can change the images so that those words are descriptive. So it's basically how to use it, and then as I add new sound sets, they'll just stack up down. Yes?
Can you record what you're...
It's funny. I deliberately did not put that in. It's the number one thing people ask for. I was like, I want people to be spontaneous and not think about recording what they're doing. And then the first thing everybody asks is, how do I record this? So,
but if it comes out great, you might want to, you'll never be able, maybe you never hear it again.
which isn't a terrible thing.
No.
Because we live in this world where everything's captured permanently, so I had this perhaps stubborn and perhaps pointless.
So it's by design that you can't.
Yes, I mean, it may be by design that next time you see this, you will. Yes?
You were asking a musician to demo it. Is that who you're aiming towards, or you're aiming towards non-musicians, or both?
It's funny, when I was sort of doing my, when I was, focus testing is too fancy a word, when I was user testing it, I found that, non-musicians, the first thing they would do is they would basically fling everything as fast as they could, they would create instant cacophony, whereas musicians would tend to be, because you can actually, and this thing actually has rules, and you can actually, if you behave really subtly about how you tilt and the speed you do things, you can actually build a pretty reasonable piece. So I found that musicians just have that instinct to not just like turn everything to 11 right away, which is, anybody else?
Seems like a very kind of chaotic system up there. Are you anticipating adding more ways to make it less so, more ordered, or like have sort of feedback loops that can pull it into some kind of rhythmic structure? Or
well, everything. I mean, it's all the loops are sort of locked in on the same time, on the same clock. So there's a little bit of order inherent to it. It is a little chaotic, and I think some of the next things I want to add to the beam engineers. There'll be a palette somewhere that you can pull down from there where you could put something in there that, like when the sphere goes through, it slows it down or it grabs it. So you can actually, when you find that you've got both spheres, when they collide, they add velocity to each other. When all of a sudden you find them both going at 11 and you're tearing your hair out, instead of having to try to grab them, you basically draw a shape and it will slow down. So I don't know if that is exactly what you had in mind, but that's another thing I hear is that it's like it can appear hectic, but if you spend some time with it, it begins to. It's like a real instrument. You begin to get a feel for. There's 8 different. These spheres have velocities from 1 to 8, and you can be able to tell what they are. And when those things collide, and the little collision happens, and the sound happens, you begin to understand which one's going to happen. And so, with a little bit of practice, you begin to actually the chaos. Your mind controls the chaos, like life. Yes.
When you talk about the feasibility or just the idea of making this collaborative, so say one of those spheres is me and the other one is someone at the other side of the world, and control the velocity or when they collide, and it's really almost like music you're playing with other people.
That's an awesome idea, and I'm writing it down right now. I know the Corona framework didn't have any support. Now, you probably have to do that with Bluetooth, and the Corona framework, until like last week, didn't have any support for Bluetooth. So I guess the whole idea of flicking a sound event over to somebody else, and then they can manipulate it and flick it back to you.
Yeah, I think about like Ocarina, and I didn't use that much, but that was one of the first ones where they were playing tones for people.
Yeah.
I don't remember if that was collaborative or not. If you're just,
I know all that really small stuff, like you could put it up on the internet and like randomly pull it down from somewhere. But the whole idea of having like 10 people with these things, connected, either with like a local area network or Bluetooth or whatever, like being able to collaborate is awesome. It's complicated to think about, but it's definitely. I'm writing it down for at least 3. Yes?
What? I'm still trying to figure out what
the hell's going on?
So, I mean, I know it's a collaborative thing and I get it, and I get that something is created from circles hitting each other. And
so in the most abstract form, like there's a series of music loops that are in this, and depending on the speed that the sphere is going, a different music loop is triggered. They're all related in a family. Like the faster, the more intense the loop is, but they're all sort of kind of genetically related to each other. Other loops are triggered by tilting. Every 50 degrees, you tilt triggers another loop, usually harmonic information. In the case of the chamber, it's like either oboes or strings. When you shake it, you get a drum loop. You shake it again, you get a more intense drum loop. And then just tapping those little pads are single hits. So there's an actual kind of logic underlying.
Okay, so is it kind of like a Jackson Pollock of music circles or something?
Well, if I was going to go visual artist, I might go.
Well, I mean, kind of, right?
I mean, you know.
I mean, it's kind of randomly hitting each other. And
Well, I think it's as random. You know, you can basically grab them.
Or not so random.
If you don't want them to collide, you want them to go slowly. You just basically move them in parallel. You know, so you have more control than than might be apparent from this demo.
So it's kind of like a game, I guess?
It's based on game physics, yeah.
It is game physics.
Yeah,
Okay.
I figured. I mean, think about what a musical instrument is. Like a piano is just 12. It's 8 repeating notes. 8 repeating octaves. I mean, musical instruments are basically games with rules, and that's what this thing.
Yeah,
That's the most
pretty
abstract
cool.
level.
You can like take it to something.
But you also, instead of Pollock, we'll say some.
Miro.
Yeah, German
Let's
abstract
just say that-
expressionism.
Yeah, whatever.
The screen.
All right. One more question.
Yes.
Could you talk briefly, you mentioned for a second that you were interested in maybe appealing to the Ableton and the Reason and Logic users.
Yes.
So I guess as it stands right now, it feels very much like an interactive game, but I guess for those individuals who might be more interested in, like, let's say you were able to upload your own original content that have maybe a text that, involves with each other or whatever,
Right.
kind of come into place. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I guess there's 2 ways to approach it. One is that can this thing be at the most abstract level a control surface that basically plugs into an Ableton or Reason, and you can basically connect it to your RAD or to your sequencer. The other thing is, like, at some point, I'm creating the sound sets now, but at some point, like, there should be some way where people should be able to upload to some server and they just show up and you can share them, and that's probably phase 2.5. But I'm trying to keep the whole, I'm trying to keep the playing rule set really constrained, because it's like there's some people who love to twiddle knobs and go on. That's why I was trying to keep it, like I said, simple. That's why I kept the recording out, even though I should probably put it in. I was trying to sort of limit people's options so they focus on sort of the more emotional side of it.
Okay. And where did the name come from, real quick?
It was just nonsense. It's like it's a nuclear isotope of potassium, K235. I'm a Bronx science graduate. So all right, thanks everybody.
Okay. One more quick announcement from our sponsor. He wants to remind you something.
Yeah, I see a bunch of you guys tweeting New York Music Tech, the hashtag, to keep it up. I'd love to see some more pictures coming in. Have a live display of the tweets over there in the corner. But I also forgot to mention, we're looking for talented engineers or anybody, so if you're interested in what we're doing, I'll be over there later. So keep tweeting. Thank you.
Thanks. And also, one really cool thing about Twubs is that it keeps a history of your tweets forever, unlike Twitter, which keeps it up for 2 weeks. So when you're looking for it next year, it will still be there.